What's good, everybody? My name is Jack Dawkins. Welcome to season 4 of Stage Dive. For those of you who've been listening, you know that the podcast traditionally has been about tips and tricks that make great performances on stage. How to prepare, how to rehearse, how to navigate an audience. But this season, I feel like we've leaned more into a new category, which is the origin story of all of these artists. How did each of these performers become the person, the performer, the artist that they are today? How did they go from zero to getting on stage? And how do they navigate all of the bumps and twists and turns that make the creative journey both beautiful and really challenging? I was blown away by all of our guests this season, and I really, really hope you enjoy this. My guest on the podcast today is Tara Frase. She is an actor who has been living and working in Orlando, Florida for more than a decade, which she points out is a very underappreciated area because there's so much entertainment and therefore entertainers in that part of the world. Now, today's conversation was not so much about acting or acting skills so much as it was organization. How do you present yourself professionally as a creative artist? I think it's really, really valuable information, frankly, for anyone in any field, but particularly if you are creative, you make music, you paint, you act, this episode is perfect for you. Please enjoy my conversation with Tara. Hey, Tara, I'm so curious, why are you cleaning your entire house from top to bottom today?
Oh, great question to start with. Because I'm having a cast party on Sunday, so I'm spending the entire week doing a deep clean and a Halloween decor overhaul.
Ooh, super
I
fun.
know.
Man, that already gave me so many questions. Cast of what?
Cast of our Halloween show at Disney.
Okay, super, super cool. How big is that cast?
Ooh, our performing group is all that I was able to bring into my home this year.
Sure.
So, um, I don't know how many techs we have, and they also change. But of our performing group, there's got to be at least like 35 of us. Yeah,
That's
performers, dancers, actors. Yeah, I think there's about 35
yeah.
to 40 of us.
Okay, okay. That's a sizable shindig. That's
I
a
hope they all
meaningful group
fit.
of people. Yeah. It'll be tight. It'll be warm. It's Florida. It's fine.
Cozy.
Cozy. Yeah, absolutely. An intimate gathering. So what stood out to me in your answer is like you have a party on Sunday, and for the
Hmm.
listeners, it's a Monday when we're recording this. Like
Hmm.
that sounds like you're the kind of person that likes to get ahead on projects because if it were me, it would be the night before or the morning of. Like, has
Yeah,
that always been how you are?
I am. I'm a Virgo with a
Okay.
little bit of Libra, and I lean heavily into my Virgo side. I'm super organized. I like to be clean. I don't like to stress at the last minute. I do, because sometimes Libra creeps in and she's like, I don't care right now. But
Hmm.
I care about this one. And I know ahead of time that I have got work and our work schedule right now because of Halloween is it tends to be pretty late. I woke up at 11:30 today and that feels ugly to me. I want to get
Hmm.
things done with my day. Um, and I have a gig this weekend as well, so I wanted to prepare ahead of time.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes a ton of sense. I mean, you noted your sign, so it sounds like this has been a forever thing. But I will ask, like, was that true when you were little? Were you always kind of like, my birthday party has a checklist, and I'm doing these things, and like da 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 da
I do like a list. I like a list for my list. I'm not a big birthday person though. Um,
da?
I just celebrated my birthday and everyone was like, "What are we going to do? What are we doing? What's the plan?" And I was like, I don't know. I
Okay.
don't know. I don't know." But
Happy belated.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Uh, I have always been a little bit neurotic.
You use the word. We can find a nicer one, I'm sure.
Mm.
Um, so pause. You're hosting a party for 35. So it's not a fear of festivity or party, but birthday parties don't jive. Help me understand.
I think I would rather spend more time celebrating others. I
I've
find more
never heard
enjoyment
anyone say
in
that before.
that.
What a shocker.
We actually had a discussion last night because we had a couple of other birthdays in the cast that most people prefer to not be sung to the birthday song. They don't want everyone to get in on a big group happy birthday to you. It's embarrassing. You like it?
I'm curious about it, right? Because like I'll give you like the thread that's going through my brain right now. So one of the things I've learned more and more is that a lot of people who are on stage are introverts, which I think is hilarious because like everything about people on stage, you would think is like they like the spotlight, they like the center of attention, they want eyes on them. And like it's true. I feel like the sneaky subtext there is like I like being the center of attention when I'm the only one who gets to talk. I don't like having to talk over people. I don't like having to compete for attention. I like it when it's like, no, there's a place where I stand and everyone knows that I'm the important one and I don't have to fight for it. I just receive it. And like receiving that attention in that way feels so good. Trying to fight for it feels really bad. Does that resonate?
You definitely just dug up something that makes so much sense. Yep. Okay, cool. I can cancel my therapist now. Thank you.
Save you a little money this week. That's just a bonus on the podcast. So there's that. And then there is, I don't know how old you are, but I feel like if you are under the age of 40, you are living in this interesting existence of like, we see the previous generations and they operated in one way. We are operating in a different way. And the existing way was keep your head down, stay humble, stay out of the spotlight, don't take up space, like get your shit done, bop, 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 bop. And I feel like the upcoming generation is one of like, be authentic, be expressive, take up space, be yourself, like fuck the rules, blah, 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 blah. I'm 36. And so I am pretty close to the middle of that. So like my parents are firmly in the former, the people younger than me are firmly in the latter. And I feel like I grew up with one and I'm stepping into the second. And so I feel like I get these interesting things. And so part of me, I totally understand what you mean, that it's embarrassing to be sung to. But then when I take a step back, it's like, but why? It's like, it's a group of people saying, we love you. We care about you. We want to honor that today is special for just you.
For one day.
Right. It's not all birthdays matter situation. It's like, no, it's your birthday and we want to celebrate you. And what's the gut reaction? Like, ooh, no, like, I don't want to be seen in that way. It's like, why? Like, why wouldn't we want to be like, oh, you would like to love and celebrate me? I would love to receive that. And like, I mean, not to be melodramatic, like that's so sad. It's really sad right. that people are like, I want to love you. And you're like, ooh, no, gross.
You're like, right. You're absolutely correct. That is another beautiful way of thinking about it because as well as only being one day a year, the song lasts, what, 20 seconds?
I mean, maybe.
I don't know what that underlying demon is, but it's got to be there. I definitely identify as the same, though, in terms of being dead set in the gray area of the middle between the former generation and the new generation, because I have a lot of moments like that in particular of not wanting attention. And then on the opposite end, I can be a total pick-me girl, a woo girl, a pick-me girl, look at me, like unreal sometimes when she gets unleashed. Gotta rein her back in.
Or maybe
there needs
not.
To be a balance. Like, there's a balance to the force. You know what I'm saying?
100%. And self-awareness matters, right? But like, yes. I think self-awareness, for at least in my mind, used to mean like, make sure I'm not doing anything ever that could possibly inconvenience anyone at any time, no matter what, which is one version of self-awareness. And then there's like, no, like my needs and my wants are real and I care about them. And I can find a balance or an in-between of like, I'm going to take up the amount of space that I need to feel whole and seen. And I can do that without having to trample on anybody else. Although even then I'm realizing like most of the time when people feel trampled, it has way more to do with their perception of being trampled than to do with anything I'm actually doing. And so more and more it's like, it wouldn't matter if I made a squeak or a full roar, like the person is going to feel trampled in some way. And so it's like, so then there's the awareness of like, cool, I see you and what you're going through and I feel for you, but also that doesn't preclude me from getting to live my life.
That's still more balance. Yeah. It's recognition that there's always going to be a balance. You're not ever going to please everyone. You're not ever going to completely please yourself. And that's okay. and we're going to go on in existence from there as best as we
Totally.
can.
Yeah, like this is going to feed into a question because it's one of the things I think about around being on stage a lot. Like, how do you balance between like um, like being the artist you are and serving as many people in the crowd as you possibly can? Because I think sometimes, at least like, and I'm relatively new to this, right? Like I've only been performing music for 2 years, but I'm always curious about the question of like pandering to a crowd is not new, right? It's like you can sort of gauge like what they're looking for and you can step into that energy. But sometimes you toe a line of like, but this is no longer me. Like I'm now no longer actually being myself or the performer that I am. So like, I'm curious how you think about it, particularly as someone who's been on screen, which means you're not performing for an audience at all, and then doing what you do at Disney when it's very interactive and very in person.
You just brought up so many points. My Virgo side is taking out my pencil and my notepad because I have 10 thoughts currently. Hold on.
You are so planful. I love it because I am not.
It hurts. This hurts my brain right now. Okay. So, obviously, we were speaking about balance, right? So my thought on this went into balance in several ways here. One, when you are being authentic to yourself, you're being the most authentic, in my case, to your character or to your performance. That means taking care of yourself. That means only, respecting your genre or your type or the roles that you succeed in or the instruments that you succeed in, but also recognizing that you need to challenge yourself and that you need to push beyond the boundary. You need to learn new things. You need to constantly be growing and taking classes or trying a type that you might not have necessarily fit into before because you might excel at it. You might also be uncomfortable. And I think that with actors specifically, we can get into a role that we feel we type well for and learn later that it didn't work out, but you can still learn lessons from a character like that. And at that point, you're already under a contract, or you're at least agreed to perform until the end of the show's run. So it's a job as well. And as much as we do this because we love it, we're also doing it because it's our job, it's our task, it's our career. So just like anyone, sometimes you don't love going to work. A lot of times you do. We wouldn't be doing this if we didn't love it so much.
Right.
The other thing is money. I think Florida is an underrated performance and like entertainment community. And it's such a big state, but we all happen to like know each other. There's the 7 degrees of who you know in the Florida entertainment industry. Sometimes a lot less than that, sometimes 1 degree. But I think that this place does give performers a great opportunity to earn money while doing what they love. And that can be in music, that can be in live entertainment, event entertainment, that can be all varying degrees of theater, and it can be in the film industry. I think that, like for me personally, at this point in my career, I don't love doing commercials because I prefer the challenge of getting into a character and learning their quirks and their physicality and the way that they speak and the way that they think. But in commercials, it's a little more two-dimensional. And yet, Florida is a really heavy commercial industry. So most of the gigs that I'll be going out to are for commercials. There are things that we have to do to maintain earning money. So there's balance there. Do what you love. Also make sure that you're able to continue doing what you love by earning money.
Yeah.
And then that kind of leads me into film not being for an audience. That's so true. And yet at the same time, along this, the last couple of years of film festivals, I've been sitting with these groups at screenings, and my film that's currently in the film festival circuit is called Hang Fire. It's about 11 minutes long, so it's a very short film, and it's usually placed into a short film bracket in the middle of the week, in the morning, sometimes in the early afternoon. So our screening audiences are very small, but they're also really niche. And I find that a film festival happens to be the place where people come to enjoy art, not going into it with an expectation. They're ready to consume anything. They're ready to consume documentary. They're ready to consume short film. They're ready to consume feature length. It could be horror. It could be drama. It could be comedy. It could be really well produced, or it could be ultra, 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 ultra low budget. And they're ready to support it. And they're ready to support the community. And I think that's really cool to see, that might be the only type of audience that doesn't exactly know what they're in for when they go to sit down and take in this art. They're cool people.
That's super interesting.
Woo, that was a bunny trail.
I mean, that's always what happens, right? It's because like all these things are so interconnected. Like as you were sharing, I mean, one of the things I thought about is like, it must be an interesting challenge, because realistically, when you're on a film set, there is an audience, which is the other actors and the director and even the lighting people. It's like a weird connection. But like I've done a couple of music videos. I'm not trying to claim professionalism by any means, but I do understand that you feel, you feel some pressure to perform in a way where it's like, I don't want them to feel like they're wasting their time or that they're making something shitty, right? It's like, yes. I want everyone here to feel like they're part of something awesome that was worthwhile and that is exciting. And I'm sure that like, I don't know if I would say it could be easy, but I could see how in trying to impress a group of people who have a specific lens on what you're doing, you can lose sight of the fact that a lot of people who show up to see what is ultimately going to be made don't have that lens. And so like the lighting guy might be like, oh, I love this shot because there's this cool effect that I can see because I do this 8 hours a day, 7 days a week. And the regular film going audience will not notice at all. Or if they do notice, it's completely subconscious and it's not a part of their experience. And again, it's like, how do I honor like my natural, authentic self on set in front of these people and perform for them in a way that makes me feel excited about what I'm doing, but doesn't disconnect from who's ultimately going to see this and who in theory I'm ultimately making this for. Because art is always both, right? It's partly made for you to express, to be in your body, to do all these different things. But ultimately, like, you can't, like, there's joy in having your art consumed, of course, right? It's like all of us, yes. If we could just like do it in a box and in our living room and you could just act out a scene and feel completely fulfilled, yeah, it'd probably be way easier, right? It's like you would skip out on the rest of the bullshit. But it's not like that. Being on stage is a high, is a connection, is this beautiful, beautiful thing. And as much as I would love to say like that rehearsing and writing and all the other things are the same, it's like, no, like I do all of those things and I get better at all those things. But for me, like the stage is the acme. It's the high point. It's the apex. It's the why. It's the why for all of it.
It is. You're absolutely correct.
Pretty good shot.
That old fox won't be coming around anymore.
Oh, my hero.
I'm glad you're home safe, but you stink.
Well, what you gonna do about it?
Let's get you a bath. Did you tell him?
Besides, you knew what I did when we got together. And it weren't a problem then.
You're right, but people change. It just doesn't feel right anymore. It's not our money. Besides, I want to start a family, Joseph. And I refuse to have a child whose father might get taken away from him in some heist gone wrong.
I'm sorry. I can't live without you.
By getting blackout drunk and hooking up with that fine piece of meat that's been staring at you for the past 30 minutes. He's fine though, right?
Like, fine.
There she is. She's back. That's the smile I love to see.
I really appreciate you both.
Of course you do. No, don't even say it. We're learning a new name tonight. His name. Here.
Jeez, Rodney, calm down a bit. Jermaine literally survived 3 hours with me on my date before breaking down. I believe he should be able to spend 3 minutes with my dad.
You're right. You're right.
Don't worry. We've all been there before. You know, now that I think about it, I think there's an opening at my dad's job. Maybe you could make some more and invite him over sometime?
Yeah. Why do you think Florida doesn't get as much love for its sort of like depth of entertainment?
Because when you think of Florida, you don't think of the same, like New York, you think of live theater. Chicago, you think of stand-up, or you think of improv.
Yep.
LA, obviously, the film and television industry.
Yeah.
Even Atlanta now, you think of the film and television industry.
For sure.
And they've made a space for creatives to succeed there through policy, through accessibility. Not so much accessibility, but it becomes a star status that you want to reach by going to those places. I think that there are other states in the United States that you could say this about, but Florida especially, you don't think about arts and entertainment. You think about beaches, you think about theme parks, you think about policy, but no one really realizes that, Miami is a hub for theater. The South Florida theater region is huge, partially because a lot of people have come down to vacation from New York and made themselves a little base there. So that community built on the legs of New York. Orlando, because of the theme parks, has its own separate realm of live entertainment and event entertainment, because this is where people come for their retreats and their business corporate events and vacations and family events and reunions and things like that. And so we've expanded from the theme parks into this crazy, awesome, almost circus-related entertainment industry where people learn special skills like stilts and aerial work and swimming in the water while performing. So many different things that you can learn when you're in Central Florida to expand on your performing abilities. And no one thinks of that. Even Tampa's got a pretty cool entertainment scene in terms of like concerts, live music and Ybor, the theaters there, all vaguely successful. But yeah, I think it's underrated because there's a lot of opportunity.
Yeah, that's super interesting. And you're a native Floridian, right?
I am.
Okay. Where were you born in Florida?
I grew up along the barrier islands on the west coast of Florida, like the Gulf Coast, south of Tampa. It's called Anna Maria Island in Bradenton, Sarasota area.
Okay, super cool. And you're now in Orlando?
Yes.
Okay, got it. And I'm curious, like when you rewind to childhood, like where did the spark for performing start?
Well, Honestly, I think it was in preschool. I went to a Christian preschool and they put on a little play and I played the cat and the fiddle. I think it was like a folklore kind of play for kids.
Okay.
And I really liked it. I really liked dressing up. I really liked the spotlight getting thrown on me. I really liked all my family coming and supporting me. And then I think my mom realized that that might have been a route to explore. So she put me in dance. And I have the best memory in the world of going out in my little tutu and seeing my grandfather's glasses reflecting off of the lights in the first couple of rows. And I loved my grandfather, and he was super supportive to the point where I enjoyed his support coming from him so much that I stayed on the stage and they had to hook me off literally and get me off stage. And I think that's where it came from. My grandmother, my maternal grandmother, was super involved in the community theater on the island. So I'm sure it has something to do with my DNA.
Yeah.
Intrinsic
absolutely.
part of me.
Yeah. Do you have any siblings?
I do. I have one brother.
Okay.
He's
and
not
did he-
artsy at all.
That's what I was going to ask. Your parents?
Yeah. Neither of them are artsy at all.
Okay. What's the question I want to ask? Like, what's wonderful about the fact that you're the only artist in the family, and what is difficult about being the only artist in the family?
It was always kind of the joke growing up that, and it still is, that Tara is the dramatic one. Tara is the one who is sensitive. Tara's weird. They don't understand my rehearsal schedule. They don't understand my career, really. My mom, bless her heart, tries her best to understand, and she's a great communicator. I love that about her. So she does retain a lot of the information that I just throw at her at once. So I appreciate that about her. But other than that, no, it's pretty hard to explain what I do to the people closest to me. But on the other hand, I did receive a ton of support and love. I often think about how many times my parents and my brother and all of my family members came to see me perform, and what a huge blessing that was, and something that I probably took for granted for most of my life. And even now, they come to support my films in the festivals. They come to support me at Disney. And I think that's going to go on for as long as I perform and as long as they're here to support me. And I think they're wonderful.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that they're so supportive of you. Were there any parts of that experience that you really enjoyed? Do you like having something that's like, it's just yours? You don't share it with anyone. There's no comparison. It's like, it's just mine.
I do. But I think I've started to realize how much performing gives you an opportunity for people to come support you. Whereas I would like more opportunities to support them now. I want to think about supporting them. And, birthdays come up and holidays come up and like promotions or retirement things and stuff like that. For my brother, hopefully someday I get to go support him at his wedding or when he has kids. But there's not many opportunities in his line of work for me to come and be like, hey, good job. That was awesome.
Yeah, totally.
So yeah, I think I would like to share that joy with them.
Yeah.
The other way around.
Yeah, 100%. If I were to ask you what is your relationship to community, what would you say?
I have different levels of community in my life. I have my performing community, everyone here, because most of the performing community in Central Florida is vast and very supportive and loving. And I like to be a teammate amongst my peers. I like to be versatile and professional and accessible to my peers here. But also in the industry abroad, my relationship is more of a take. I like to learn a lot. I love taking classes. I love keeping up with, current events, with the SAG union, with the Actors Equity Union. And then I also have one that's more home-based. I really love my neighborhood. I love downtown Orlando. I think it's a really awesome place to live, and my neighbors are the coolest neighbors ever. Also, I just got booed last night. Do you know what that is? Have you ever been booed before? So during Halloween season, it's a tradition for someone in your neighborhood to leave like a small Halloween themed gift at your door. And you just walk out and you see it and you've gotten booed. And then you're supposed to pass it along to someone else. So eventually the entire neighborhood gets booed. And it's kind of like a Secret Santa, except spooky.
Yeah.
So I got booed last night, and I haven't since I was a kid. And my husband and I just moved to this house in downtown last September. So I think I've found my small home community here. I love it.
That's awesome. That's also I think this is going to sound weird. I think it's easy to forget that Florida is in the South. And then I hear that, and I'm like, oh yeah, you're totally
yeah.
You're so in the South.
We're so Southern.
Yep.
We're really Southern, especially where I grew up. I often also forget that we are super Southern, but when I think back to where I grew up, it was a lot of fishermen's villages and sandy beach goers, and we're a little bit hick over there on the west coast of Florida. I don't think it extends to the east coast of Florida. They're a little more pristine, but where I grew up, we're a little dirty.
I love that. My mom's from Pensacola, and so I spent a ton of time there growing up. And that's always my call sign of that shit is, we're 40 miles from Alabama. That's the South. And you also said bless her heart, which
so Southern.
So Southern. So Southern. Did you ever think about leaving
Florida?
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I've thought about it. A lot of people, as I was, growing up in community theater and taking acting classes, and when I finally decided to go to school for theater, everyone just naturally assumes, oh, you're going to go to Broadway someday. You're going to go live in New York and audition and do all that stuff. But no, not seriously. I have always wanted to just stay a regional performer. I prefer consistency, which is not something that we find in this industry. And so I, obviously realized pretty early on that wasn't going to be possible. But as I became engaged with the professional aspect of the Florida entertainment community, I realized that it was possible to do so. So I very vehemently stick to that today.
Yeah. And is that consistency within a season, year round? How consistent is it actually versus it is more consistent than the alternative of I have a dear friend who is in New York, and it's I don't talk about not understanding his life. I love this man. I've known him for nearly 25 years. He's yeah, I had 7 auditions. I didn't hear back from any of them. But then one called me back 3 weeks later, was hey, actually, can you come here in 4 hours? And then I did this thing, and it was out in Yellowstone. So I was there for a few weeks, and that was weird. And then I came back, and I'm just what?
Yes.
How, okay, cool. And some level it is, because it's a great reminder when I'm oh my God, my life is so crazy. I'm it is not. Like it could be so much crazier. Anyway, sorry, that was a sidebar. I was asking you about the consistency of your life and your schedule.
No, you answered it for me because no to consistency in the way that's a 9 to 5, Monday through Friday.
Right.
Absolutely not. No, I could never do that
Right.
ever. But all power to those who do. But personally, I couldn't survive that way. It's consistency in the way that that presents itself in opportunity. I always want to have opportunity around me. When I was finishing up my degree, I went to Florida Atlantic University in Boca. I did have a moment where I was like, I don't see myself going and trying to rough it in New York. I don't see myself flying to LA and just trying to land an agent right away. I don't see that. I want something a little more consistent. And I also have a lot of family here. I'd like to stay here. And a friend of mine told me that Disney was the place to go, or Orlando was the place to go because of the theme parks. And they do. Right now I'm part-time with Walt Disney World, and that gives me the opportunity to be able to pick up shifts as I need to. And if I don't, then I don't. And I can go audition for theater here. I can go submit a dozen self-tape auditions to film things and not hear back from any of them. So consistency in the form of opportunity.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense. Is there, what's the question I'm trying to ask? Is there like not a finish line? And I hear you when you say you don't want a 9 to 5. Is there like between where you are and where you could be, what's the gap? Like what would be the absolute ideal in terms of like availability of opportunity? What does that look like for you?
Right now, I am really lucky to be in a relationship where my income is not important to us sustaining our life. My husband makes enough money that what I earn is a drop in the bucket. So I'm not saying that this is going to be this way forever. That could change tomorrow, as we've learned. I'm basing this answer on my current situation. My current situation, I would love a sub-equity position at Disney where I can pick up as needed, but maintain status in the union and maintain that kind of cushiness of a performing job that's always going to be there, for the most part.
Yeah.
Then being able to pick up a project for film that would last a few weeks, a month, a couple months, a few months or so at most, or a show, same timeline for theater, and then have a month or so off to reconnect with my husband. And eventually I'd like to have kids, so I want to be able to maintain decent enough hours that I can still connect and feed into my family, but also feed into my soul and what my soul needs, which is performing. And it's always going to be performing. There will never be a time that I want to sit in a 9 to 5 for me.
Totally get it. And as you framed, like all love to those who find their version of balance within that. Like in some ways, I'm very jealous of you. Yes. Those out there who are like, this fits my life and it gives me the income I need to do the things that I love and to support my family. And like, it's awesome.
It is. I wish I wanted to do that.
Yeah. It's like, it's the perverse other side of the mirror, right? It's like, there is such a wonderful bounty of things that we can receive from creating art and performing art in all these different ways. And like there's a negative side. There's a reason that a lot of people struggle with mental health and drugs and alcohol and a whole bunch of other stuff, because like it's frenetic, it's unpredictable, it's not cushy in all the ways. And so it's funny, like our version of cushy is like not total unpredictability all the time, every day, forever.
Right.
Like, can I have like 10%? Kind of, maybe.
10% consistency.
I'll take maybe. Like, that would be cool. I could work with that. That would be fun. Yeah, it's so funny. I love doing this podcast, but before I got into podcasting, storytelling was really my first love. It was the first thing I had the courage to get up and do on stage, and as a result, it always has a very, very special place in my heart. On November 2nd of 2023, I released my debut album called Integration, and storytelling is really, really at the heart of it. It's only 30 minutes long. It's a really personal sort of tale about my journey through being an artist and being creative, so much of what I talk about here on the podcast. If you're able, if you're willing, I would be so grateful if you would just take the time to listen to it. And if you can, top to bottom once through, it's only 30 minutes. I think it's a beautiful story. I'm very, very proud of it, and I hope you love it. Thank you. So actually, this is such a specific question. So before we got, I was going to say on this call, on the podcast, I don't fucking know. It's fine. I went to your website and I was looking through, and something I wanted to ask you about. It's very professional.
My website?
And yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I mean that like certainly as a compliment, that like anyone who went there would see like, this is a person taking this seriously. She's invested, like this is clearly her career. Cool. The other thing, like, I don't want this to be offensive. Like, okay. It was the most like LinkedIn actors website I've ever seen. And like one of the things, like, I think the sentence was like, people work with me over and over again. And I think the first word you give is like my efficiency. And I was like, go on. Tell me about efficiency in the context of acting and why you felt that was an important thing to highlight for those who might want to come to work with you.
Sure. I think unfortunately that derives from seeing others on set and in rehearsal processes that aren't efficient. And when I say they're not efficient, they're not learning their lines ahead of time. They're not organized, so they don't have all of their paperwork squared away. They don't have their script aligned in a way that's productive to them to learn quickly and to understand what is being asked of them quickly and to stick to it. Because that organized Virgo side is so heavy in me, I feel for a director or a stage manager that is having to sit and re-explain blocking notes to the same performer over and over again. That takes up so much time. And I understand that it's flexible in an artistic environment. It's everyone's process, and it's everyone's process that's going to be different. But I think that there are a lot of things that you can do to clean up your prep time so that the art and the exploration comes from not a lack of preparation. It's not an accident for the most part. It's a technical process that can get you to your understanding sooner, so that for the sake of rehearsal time, for the sake of time that is spent getting the shot, you're not wasting other performers or other tech elements' time. Because everyone needs to work together to collaborate to form the beauty that becomes these projects. Yeah. And if you're not prepared, you're cutting into their time as well.
Right.
So I come to the table with an outlined script. I have questions written down. If I need to know anything, I'm not going to ask them beforehand. I'm not going to ask them in the middle of a take. If there is a certain level of flexibility that the director is requesting, I'm going to know ahead of time what that means, what that entails. I recently worked on a theater project where there was 2 directors, and they were wonderful, brilliant women, but they complemented each other in the fact that one of them was super organized and super detail-oriented, and the other was just purely creative. If the organized one was getting stuck in her creativity, the other one was there and she would go, "Hey, what do you think about this?" And she'd go, "Idea." let's try this. And it worked brilliantly. So I can appreciate a team that works together and knows their strengths and weaknesses. I happen to know mine. I know that I'm going to come to set with all of my items clearly laid out. I'm going to come with whatever you've asked me to bring in terms of wardrobe, in terms of makeup, in terms of things to keep me busy and out of the way. These are all just examples, but I am quite efficient in that way.
Yeah, no, that it all makes very good sense. I think my brain is forking into two different directions. So the first one I'll start with is like, where do you pick all that up? Because I say this lovingly. Maybe you showed up to your first ever set doing all of those things. I'm going to guess not. And so maybe the deeper question is like, how much of that was a mentor or another actor demonstrating this behavior and you being like, oh, cool, like that's how you show up to set, versus like you having an internal clock of like, I see this wasted time. I see the frustration on the director's face. Like, God, please let me not be that person. What can I do to make myself not show up like that?
Mm-hmm. From the very beginning stages of my performing experience, I think, especially in ballet, it's very technical and it's very strict. And I worked with people from the Russian ballet. I worked with people from the Royal Dance Academy. And they were teachers that did not put up with people's bullshit. You don't come to class without having practiced your combinations. You don't come to class and sit and talk with everyone and interrupt or distract from instruction. And if you don't learn the moves fast enough and you aren't proficient in your technique, you're not going to get the roles. You're not going to make the advanced classes for next year's term. So I think a lot of that came from very early on in ballet. But then when I transitioned into community theater, that was a lot more playful and a lot more inexperienced and a lot more, what's the word I'm looking for? Amateur. But the successful people, the ones that came back time and time again, were the ones that knew their lines quickly, or they had a process if they didn't, where, you know, they weren't wasting time. They could make a placeholder. They learned their dance choreography. They learned their blocking quickly. And at the same time, they were able to come back and not only be professional sticklers, but also be really personable and character driven and lovely people.
Yeah. Quick sidebar. What tips do you have for people who need to memorize things?
So I just finished up a couple of multi-week classes at the Melee School of Modeling and Acting in Orlando, and Jim Braswell was my instructor. He's well known in our community here. And I never had a technique for memorizing besides just, you know, repetition. And it doesn't work for a lot of people. His recommendation was to memorize your lines based on your intention. So in one of the acting techniques called Meisner, you're placing a tactic on each line. Sometimes this works, sometimes it doesn't, because you need to have an actable verb to get your message across or get your finish your task with your scene partner. So I want to woo her with this statement, or I want to seduce him, or I want to intimidate them is an actable verb. So if you're going in with the intention behind each of those lines, it's easier to memorize chunks of text. So that was a cool one that I've been playing with a lot lately. Highly recommend.
Super interesting. So let me parrot that back to you just to make sure I'm understanding. Like within either a scene or a piece of a scene, you're first locking in on like, what am I trying to portray or project onto the other character in the scene, my scene partner? and then like coming from that place, then kind of working through the memorization so that there's kind of the embodied, like I'm saying it with this energy, not just I'm saying these specific words.
Because any conversation, even in real life, not just between two characters in a scene, is going to have an arc. You know, it's going to have a beginning, a middle, and end. What takes you through all of the emotions? What is the verb that is taking you through all of these emotions? And again, it's flexible. Sometimes it works. Sometimes I find that it doesn't. But marking the intention behind each thing is going to be like, as an example, okay, I'm going up to my boyfriend to find out if he's cheating on me. My first remark might be, where were you last night? I'm interrogating him. I'm baiting him. I know where he was, but I want him to tell me. We go through a little bit of mishmash about where he was. I'm still baiting him. I'm still kind of like setting a trap. The middle becomes, oh, I just caught you in the lie. So I trapped him. I'm belittling him because he did that. That was so foolish of him. I'm interrogating him. Things like that. Then the end is going to be, well, we wrap up on, I'm going to leave. So I'm leaving him. I'm saying, no, goodbye. You get your things and leave. Get your things and go. I'm seeking closure. So that's an example of one that wouldn't work. So it would have to be one actable verb. I'm ruining him. I am destroying him with my words. You no longer mean anything to me. You never meant anything to me. No problem. I'm going to go live my life without you. Something like that. So it helps you find your arc and make sense of the scene in a foundational way.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. It gave me another sidebar, which is, do you ever have to do any emotional clearing between getting off set and coming home? And if you do, what does that look like?
Yes. Especially for scenes where you're covering a really difficult topic like rape or death. Those naturally elicit sometimes tears, or the stronger choice would be trying to keep yourself from crying. That physically does, have an effect on you. I have a really good friend right now who's writing her thesis on how actors have to cope with characters that go through similar life experiences as their actors. So the loss of a father, for instance, and it's really difficult. But I think that comes with practice. That's something I'm still learning how to do. In my own life, I have a crippling anxiety around difficult discussions with my parents. So I go to therapy to help me disconnect from difficult conversations so that I'm not getting into a hyper emotional state. A lot of deep breathing, a lot of cooling down your body so that your nervous system can come to a state of neutrality. I theorize that something like using ice packs on your wrists or in the back of your neck could be super helpful. Finding a quiet space and just doing some deep breathing. If you're in the middle of a high tension situation, finding the next nearest object to you and listing 10 things about its physical appearance to disconnect. I think getting your physical body to a state of neutrality is the most important.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned that you have the short film that's kind of on the festival circuit. It's only 11 minutes. say more about that project. What's it been like to film? What's it like to see it in festivals? Like, what's that experience been like?
Oh, it's rootin' tootin', let me tell you. So I met my director, Dustin Seltzer, on a commercial project. Another reason to do things sometimes that you don't like to do is meeting people. And I was talking about how I enjoy period projects. I enjoy Westerns, Regency Theater, Shakespeare. If I could do period projects the rest of my life, I would be a happy, happy girl. And he was like, that is so funny because I am producing a Western short film that we're filming next summer. And you actually fit the description of the character in the script. And so when it came time, he reached out to me and asked if I'd be willing to do it. I said, hell yeah. And we went and filmed it June 2021, June 2021 or 2022. What year is it? Over at the Pioneer Village in Kissimmee, Florida. And I showed up to set and he had these amazing thrifted and handmade costumes that were period. They had a gun wrangler who was able to pull together prop guns that looked so badass. The Pioneer Village itself was just this picturesque little village that brought you out of time and into the Western age. And it was hot, so we were definitely immersed in the idea. And it took us a couple days to film. It was super exciting. The team was super professional and on top of their shit. I love a team that is on top of their shit and efficient. Can you tell? Mm-hmm. And everyone was wonderful. Everyone was professional. Everyone was safe. It's about 10 minutes, 11 minutes long. So a short script, but pretty impactful and tells a really cool story about a couple of badass people looking to start a new life. And the actors were incredible. At one of the film festivals, I received a Best Actress award, but one of our leads, Brandon Crum, also received a Best Actor award. Audiences are really loving it. We've been to several film festivals this year, and our last one is coming up at the Fort Lauderdale International Film Festival in November. It runs from the 3rd to the 16th. I will definitely be there opening weekend. I have a great connection to the film festival down there in Fort Lauderdale because I was in their first commercial in 2015 and some of their posters. And I went on to be a liaison for them for a couple of years. So I'm excited to get back. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be the best film festival to go out on because they've got great events. And their film lineup this year looks really good. I'm excited.
That's awesome. Starting to like round out and finish up the conversation, you mentioned like that Florida is so underrated, and it sounds like, you know, you've mentioned classes, you're meeting people on sets who have other projects going. Like there's so much of that. Like it's almost like when there's synapses within an industry and they can actually fire and talk to each other when things get really cool. What's missing in that scene that you wish there was more of?
I wish that there were more film incentives in our policy here. I think that Florida's had a couple of opportunities and it's been on the ballot a couple of times in the last decade. But I wish that we did have more tax incentives for film creators to come down here because we've got beautiful locations that are so close to each other. You can find a gorgeous, almost like Caribbean looking beach that's 10 minutes away from a farm estate. In the North Florida region, you can find some hills that actually look to us Floridians actually look like mountains. We've got great weather. You know, it's very easy to film here all year long, even during hurricane season because they come and go within 24, 48 hours.
Right.
Yeah, I think that this landscape and the amount of talent, of amazing talent and schools here and classes and community that we have in Florida would be the perfect battleground for an effective and successful film industry.
Yeah, super cool. And then final question, if it were 1 year from now, so October 2nd, 2024, and you think about yourself as an actor, if everything between now and then went absolutely perfectly, what would have happened? What would have transpired within the next year?
I am taking a contract at Disneyland Paris next month. It's open-ended. Yeah. So I would like to go explore and fuck around for a little bit with my husband in Europe.
Yep.
Maybe a few months. Come back in the spring, and hopefully the SAG-AFTRA strikes will be over, and the film industry will be ramping up for work, and opportunities are abound. And I would like to obtain an agent here, and maybe one in Atlanta, and get myself on a couple of small, cool film projects. That'll be a year from now.
That would be a great year.
That'd be a hell of a year.
That'd be a hell of a year. Yeah. Tara, thank you so much for taking the time to share with me today and for sharing your perspective, your insights, your experiences. It's been such a wonderful conversation. Thank you.
It's been fantastic. Thank you, Jack.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for listening today. It is genuinely my pleasure, my joy to share these conversations with you. If you are able, if you're willing, please leave a review, hopefully a good one, on whatever platform it is that you're enjoying these conversations. It really helps us with visibility and having these stories be told to a wider and wider audience. There are many, many ways you can connect with us. The best one, just reach out to stagedivepodcast@gmail.com. You can recommend a guest, you can give us feedback, you can send us memes, whatever would make you happy. Thank you again for being here. My name is Jack Dawkins, and we'll see you again soon.